A torrid affair conducted in secret. A gun makes its way into the wrong hands.
The evidence so far is scanty. There's no unusual fingerprints, no muddy footprints, and no murder weapon.
A .40 caliber farewell that resonates through the streets and homes of a quiet Midwestern city.
This is one of those cases that was unusual. It was all hands on deck.
And a mystery that will consume the authorities and the public alike until a series of shocking revelations finally see the light of day. Independence, Missouri, just to the east of Kansas City. It's a Midwestern town through and through, if largely a suburb of its bigger neighbor.
It's about a quarter of the size, and they don't have a lot of violent crime. In fact, they average about 9 homicides a year.
But many of the residents like to pack a little something extra, just in case. Indeed, Missouri ranks 20th in the U.S. for gun ownership. And nearly half of its 6 million residents are in possession of some kind of firearm. Randy Stone, a 42-year-old insurance agent and Marine veteran, is one of them. It's the afternoon of March 31st, 2010. Randy Stone is in his insurance office. Whether he knows it or not, he isn't alone there today. Randy Stone's wife, Teresa, discovers his body at around 5 o'clock that afternoon.
And she tells police that she gets to their small storefront insurance office where they shared this office together and noticed that the blinds were drawn. And she said that that was odd. The deadbolt was open. She told police that was unusual. She goes inside. All of the lights are off.
I yell. I say, honey, where are you? And I walk into his office and I turn the light on and, you know, the computer's up, everything looks fine. I walk into the back room back there and turn the light on and he's not back there.
Which room is that? The storage?
The storage room, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Then I walk around the corner.
To your office? What do you see?
Walks into her office and finds him dead on the floor.
What did you do once you saw him there?
I kept yelling for him to wake up.
Did you shake?
I didn't touch you.
Okay.
Police headquarters is a 7-minute drive from the office, so responders are on the scene very quickly.
Investigators know they have to find out as much as they can about Randy's life in order to discover who has ended it.
So we know that Randy and Teresa were high school sweethearts. By all accounts, very popular, joined at the hip kind of situation, and everyone kind of assumed right after high school they would get married. Turns out Randy had a different idea. He wanted to join the military and went and did so. Randy was a Marine, and as soon as he got back from his service, sure enough, he and Teresa became husband and wife.
To the Stones, Independence seems an ideal place to raise a family, and they soon have 2 growing children.
Randy and Teresa Stone have separate interests, as couples often will.
Randy enjoys sports like basketball, and he likes his guns as well. He often goes to his in-laws' property to target shoot, while Teresa raises the children and runs the household.
She appears content to take on all the duties required to keep a family going.
But of course, everyone needs some form of leisure. For Teresa, it seems to be shopping.
Psychologists have established that shopping functions not only as leisure, but also as a way for a person to regain a feeling of control over their lives and to reduce anxiety. We don't know exactly what Teresa is undergoing emotionally in this period, but we know how stressful managing a household can be.
While Randy and Teresa frequently do their own things, they share interests as well. These largely revolve around the New Hope Baptist Church.
It's one of those churches that was described as a very, very close-knit congregation. They shared meals together. It was not unusual for people to spend 3, 4, 5, 6 days or nights a week at this congregation. And Randy and Teresa were incredibly involved.
This level of involvement in the church, especially a church in the Southern Baptist tradition, brings with it a commitment that is nearly total. Randy and Teresa Stone took the idea of serving very literally. The Southern Baptist Convention was created in 1845 when there was a split with the larger Baptist church over slavery. The profound conservatism of the movement appeals to heartland people like the Stones, and that the convention allowed individual churches to set their own doctoral degree appeals in particular to Randy.
Randy volunteers with church treasury work and keeps a close eye on the books.
He was heavily involved in the church finances. As treasurer, he served on the board.
And he teaches Sunday school, where he shares his faith with the children of New Hope.
Teresa sings in the choir and frequently works in the kitchen during church events. By the time they are in their early 40s, their children are nearly grown and in school. With involvement in the church, naturally comes involvement with its pastor, Brother David Love, who arrives there in 1999. Randy and Teresa become close friends with both Brother Love and his wife, Kim.
Pastor Love was a good-looking guy, very charismatic, very energetic. Everyone loved Pastor Love.
A congregation's perception of pastoral humility and honesty has been found to be a strong predictor of its commitment to the church, especially in smaller churches like the New Hope Baptist Church in Independence. So it's very important that Pastor Love encourages such a perception. And in this, he certainly succeeds. And Randy and Teresa Stone feel lucky to have such a man as the head of their church.
It was just a very, very close-knit church community. And Randy and Pastor Love, by all accounts, were what you would consider best friends.
The couple also spends time together at the insurance office, where each has an office of their own.
When couples work together day in and day out, it isn't always a good thing for the marriage. But in this case, it seems to be fairly harmonious.
Not a lot of people can get along great working a few feet from their spouse every day, but they did it, and by all accounts, it seemed to work out just great for the two of them.
The only work-related problem that Teresa reports to investigators involves a strange man who came to the office once when both Teresa and Randy were working, and then another time when only Randy was there.
My husband said he came back once when he was there by himself.
You know who this guy is?
No, we have never seen him.
How long
before.
was this?
I don't even remember what he was asking for.
Did he look homeless or anything? Or?
Yes, he did. The time he came in, it was very cold because he had on a very heavy coat. I think he had a mustache. He was pretty tall.
Though he never made any specific threats, the Stones consider this man an unwelcome and potentially dangerous presence.
Has this man come into the office a third and final time on this fateful March 31st? Police must find out. After such an encounter, Randy takes it upon himself to have some sort of defense in the building.
What guns do you know that he had here at the office or anywhere?
The only one that I know of that he has
Yeah.
was a little bitty thing.
Black gun?
Yes,
That's what you said earlier.
little bitty thing. It's little.
Where do you keep it?
And I don't even like touching it. I am pretty positive he kept it in the drawer at the back of his credenza.
Unfortunately, on March 31st, 2010, Randy is found dead and defenseless on the floor of his office by his wife, Teresa.
The first officer on the scene happens to be from New Hope Baptist Church, and he knows Randy and Teresa very well. He's stunned by what he finds and does his best to comfort Teresa.
Pastor Love and his wife Kim arrive at the scene of the crime as soon as they hear what has happened. Any concerned church leader would do the same thing. And of course, Teresa's mom and dad, the first people she's called upon discovering Randy's body, get there as soon as they can.
Of course, the uppermost question in everybody's mind is who could have done this? Who would have wanted a stand-up guy like Randy Stone dead?
He hasn't had an affair with someone.
Several years ago, he did.
Randy was killed not by a stranger, but by someone he knew.
One of the biggest pieces of evidence was in a trash can a couple of feet from Randy Stone's body.
The murder of Randy Stone shocks the suburban town of Independence, Missouri. Randy and Teresa Stone, married almost 20 years, are apparently as happy and God-fearing a couple as you might ever meet. One horrible afternoon, Teresa Stone's life changes forever when she finds the body of her husband slumped on the floor of her own office.
And I noticed he wasn't breathing, but I didn't want to touch him. I was
That's fine.
scared.
One of the things police ruled out immediately was suicide. There was no gun found at the scene.
In fact, police do find a gun at the scene, but it's Randy Stone's work gun, and it hasn't been fired.
And you said he has this one small gun. Okay, we found that.
You did?
Yes. No other guns?
No.
Okay.
They also find a hunting knife, but it too has no connection to the crime.
Police rule out robbery as a motive because there's money left on a desk in the office.
Randy Stone also had his wallet in his back pocket. So a robbery seemed out of the question.
Given the position of the body, it seems evident that Randy was killed not by a stranger, but by someone he knew.
They thought from the beginning that whoever killed Randy Stone was probably someone that he knew. They just didn't know who.
But evidence so far is scanty. There's no unusual fingerprints, no muddy footprints, and no murder weapon. But what police do find is a shell casing lying on the ground near Randy Stone's body. And with a little forensic work, a shell casing can tell you a lot.
It appeared Randy had been shot with a .40 caliber.
During their investigation, police check the phone in Randy's office and find something interesting.
Early in the investigation, police learn that the first number that Teresa Stone dialed after finding her husband's body was not 911. It was her parents. They tell her to call the emergency number, and she does. But the question remains, why didn't she call an ambulance right off the bat?
Of course, in a stressful situation, a person might behave in ways that seem odd later on, but it did raise a small flag.
Detectives delve deep into their 8-hour interview with Teresa Stone, and cracks in the facade of her marriage appear quickly.
No affairs on the side or anything like that.
No.
He hasn't had an affair with someone. And just be honest.
Several years ago, he did.
Okay.
But that was right after we got married.
Okay.
That was a long time ago.
And it didn't cause any friction that
No.
you guys were wanting to get separated
No,
or
no.
you never had to leave the residence or anything? No one left the residence or anything?
No, never.
Investigators collect every instance of conflict Randy Stone has in his life, but there aren't many.
Randy Stone had been keeping the books for New Hope. And early in Pastor Love's tenure there, Randy discovers $30,000 missing from a missionary fund.
He was upset about the finances and the way that the finances were being handled. And that was no secret.
Pastor Love is asked to account for it, but angrily denies any wrongdoing. It must have been difficult for Randy to bring it up in the first place, given how much admiration and respect he had for the pastor. And soon, Randy's trust in Pastor Love is regained to the point of having him counsel the Stones when their marriage runs into trouble. That's the sort of person Randy is, a religious man inclined to forgiveness.
Well-liked as he is, Randy Stone's funeral is a crowded affair. Friends, family, clients, and well-wishers. And there are a number of additional guests as well.
That day, members of the Independence Police Department were in that church, and they recorded the stirring, beautiful eulogy delivered by Pastor David Love.
You see, there's nothing more that we can do for Randy Stone. Nothing more we can do for him. He'll never have another thought in this body, another emotion, another hunger, pain. He'll never be able to sign another policy or kiss his wife on this side of glory. Randy Stone's name was on the sign over his office, Randy Stone Insurance Agency. How many here really know that Teresa was the agent of that place? She was the cement and the glue, wasn't she?
At that point, they weren't sure who was involved in the murder, but they thought it was likely that the murderer would be inside that church. And of course, it turns out they were right.
But everyone Randy Stone knows is in the church today. So who is the killer?
Investigators don't yet know who killed Randy Stone, but when the ballistic reports come in, they at least know what type of gun killed him.
It appeared Randy had been shot with a .40 caliber. The casings from the gun were on the floor, and those were collected as evidence.
Investigators know that Randy Stone likes to target shoot, and they also know how statistically likely it is for someone to be shot with their own gun. So a trip to one of Randy's target shooting ranges seems warranted.
They were able to take some shell casings from one of the shooting ranges that he frequented, and those shell casings from his gun matched the casings at the scene where he was shot and killed.
Spent bullets and casings are as individual as your fingerprint. They're compared under a split-screen microscope by forensic experts to determine whether they came from the same gun.
It turns out those shell casings ended up matching Randy Stone's own .40 caliber weapon.
We know that Randy was killed with his own Glock. We went out to your house, or your parents' house, and got shell casings, okay? From when he used to target shoot.
The discovery that Randy Stone was killed with his own firearm raises a number of critical questions and gives the investigation an intensely new focus.
So how does Randy Stone come to be shot with his own gun? This is a key question in the investigation. An entire prosecution will rest on it.
You have to remember, Randy Stone was a Marine. He was also a gun enthusiast, and everyone around him said he never, ever would have turned his back on anyone in that office that he felt was a threat. It wasn't in his nature. He was a Marine.
I want to know how anybody could get into that office, get that Glock, and shoot your husband. Because we're talking about the former war guy, the Marine. How would anybody get that gun away from him?
I don't know. I have no idea. I keep asking myself that all the time.
Marines follow very strict code on firearms handling. During training, there's a very strong emphasis on marksmanship and weapons handling. They practice weapons handling and dry firing for weeks before they ever shoot a live round. They're taught to secure their weapon, to always know where their weapon is, and to never turn their back on someone who might be their enemy. You get that training like Randy Stone did, and you have it for life.
The man who killed your husband had the gun already. There's no way you could have got that gun away from your husband.
Investigators now discover a new piece of evidence that sends the case ricocheting into yet another surprising direction.
One of the biggest pieces of evidence was in a trash can a couple of feet from Randy Stone's body.
Ex-Marine and insurance agent Randy Stone is murdered in a case that has all of Independence, Missouri abuzz. And although the gun that kills Randy has disappeared, ballistic evidence indicates that the weapon has been owned by Randy himself. Now, newly discovered evidence is about to turn the case on its head.
So detectives, as they're going through the office looking for evidence, look in the trash can feet away from where Randy Stone lies dead. And in that trash can, they find a discarded love letter. And it wasn't crumpled up. there really wasn't even any real attempt to destroy this letter. It was in about 9 pieces. It took some Scotch tape to put the letter back together. This was very clearly a love letter from someone to Teresa Stone.
Initially, in speaking to detectives, Teresa had admitted that her husband had engaged in extramarital affairs. Teresa's urge to highlight her husband's wrongdoing is in fact a common prelude to confessing her own indiscretions. She has to build that little mound of moral high ground before exposing herself. There's no doubt that Teresa is committed to her Christian faith, that she's earnestly dedicated to the church. But human nature is such that the lineaments of dedication, of loyalty, of love can become blurred, and this is part of what happens to Teresa.
Police, over several hours of interrogations of Teresa Stone, finally start getting her to admit that this was more than just a secret admirer, that in fact she had had a 10-year love affair with Pastor David Love.
Your extramarital relationship with David lasted about 10 years.
Yeah.
During
It got stronger as the years went on.
Okay. So it started off as a what type
Just
of
like,
relationship?
you know, close friends, good friends, you know,
Then it grew to what?
sexual love.
Love. So you guys fell in love.
Yeah.
So we now know this was not an affair that lasted 6 months or a year. They had been seeing each other for almost 10 years.
Where would you guys normally meet when you guys were going to be sexually involved?
Well, we never planned it. When we were deeply involved, I mean, of course I would call him when Randy would leave, you know, and if I knew he was going to be gone for, you know, an hour, then he would come to the office if it was convenient for him.
So we're talking your office.
Yeah.
Farmers. Your home.
Yes.
His home.
Twice. It was harder there.
In his office. The church.
Yes.
Kim Love notices her husband receiving texts on unfamiliar-looking phones. Her suspicions are aroused, and she soon finds her suspicions are justified.
It turns out Kim, the pastor's wife, found several burner phones in their home. The kind of phones that don't have a name attached to them, the kind of phones that are very difficult to trace. And she didn't just find one phone. She found multiple phones in the home. And those phones, we now know, were used between Pastor Love and Teresa Stone to conceal their 10-year affair.
Teresa claims that matters come to a head about 2 weeks before the murder on St. Patrick's Day, when David Love and his wife show up at the office.
Pastor walked in, and Randy said, "Pastor, I really don't have anything to say to you. I really don't."
This is when the secrets come out. There's no doubt about the affair between Teresa and David. And now, David Love wants to talk about Randy's own past indiscretions with other women, and more recently, with pornography.
He starts talking to him about his internet problem, you know, his pornography problem, his, you know, stuff like that. And Randy said, "That's all behind us. You know, we've gotten over that."
This is all stuff he and the Stones had talked about in their counseling sessions. And to bring it up now just compounds the betrayal. Kim Love, who has long suspected her husband, is just plain angry.
Didn't you and the wife have words out?
Yeah. I told her that she wasn't a very good wife, pastor's wife.
Investigators soon uncover more of Teresa's strange activity on the day of the murder.
And one of the admissions that investigators gently pry from Teresa is that after the discovery of Randy's body, she went to the bathroom of a local rental car agency and destroyed the burner phone that Pastor Love had given her.
After you found your husband, you left the crime scene to go to the bathroom, and while you were there, you destroyed a phone. You know what that looks like.
I know.
How are we going to explain that?
Not the actions of a completely innocent person.
On the day after Randy's murder, Teresa has a conversation that strikes investigators as strange.
Detectives knew that she had been asking a lot of questions about Randy Stone's life insurance policies. Even in the day after her husband's murder, she was asking about the life insurance policies, which seemed very odd for a grieving widow less than 24 hours after her husband's death.
Pastor Love's behavior had been odd as well. The very day after Randy Stone's body was found, the pastor gets a call from an old friend who asks him how he's holding up after the death of a friend and congregant. Like a river glorious, David Love says, quoting the title of an old and cherished hymn. In interviews, detectives repeatedly refer to the idea of confession being good for the soul. They know that, say, in Catholic culture, confession occurs in a small chamber in virtual secret, while other strains of Christian belief, including Teresa's, hold that confession, like faith itself, ought to be shouted from the rooftops. But Teresa's faith has been exploited by Pastor Love.
He kept throwing Bible verses up at me, and what other Bible characters did in the Bible, and how they murdered and God still blessed them and stuff like that. And I was like, and I kept telling him, I'm like, that was then. This is now.
And in the interrogation room, Teresa Stone is finally circling closer to the truth.
You told your parents specifically that Randy had been shot. You told the 911 operator you think he might have fallen. You never told him that he had been shot. You kept that to yourself. When you talked to the ambulance dispatcher, the person who needs to know what's going on there medically, you never told him that he'd been shot. If somebody told you that he was shot because you knew he'd been shot, and you didn't want us to know that.
He sent me a text and told me.
Who did? Say it. Brother Love.
He sent me a text and told me not to go to the office.
Teresa finally recognizes this man for what he is.
He said that he would kill for me. He said, I will do anything for you.
Police have no shortage of questions for Teresa Stone. Why had she destroyed her phone the night of the murder? Why had she been so concerned with Randy's life insurance? And why hadn't she called police immediately on learning what David Love had done? But for now, Teresa is happy to incriminate David Love while maintaining her own innocence.
I'm not going to protect him anymore.
Finally, investigators have something close to confirmation of the killer's identity. But their suspect, it turns out, has left town.
Randy Stone had his suspicions about his own wife.
They learned the shocking lengths to which Pastor Love was willing to go.
It's no wonder that Randy never saw it coming.
A mysterious murder rocks a Missouri town, but the sordid story behind it is even more shocking.
If you know something and you don't confess now, I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to get through this.
A bereaved wife tells part of what she knows.
When I was on my way back to the office, after I dropped Miranda off at the house, he sent me a text and told me, he said, seriously urgent, do not go back to the office by yourself.
Randy Stone and David Love were friends. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that at least at one time, Randy considered Pastor Love his best friend. It's no wonder that Randy never saw it coming.
He said he walked to the office and he just aimed and didn't even look.
He said he did that?
That's what he told me.
So he said he pulled the trigger?
He said he just aimed and didn't even look. He just did it.
The detective's suspicions about David Love are now nearly confirmed after many slow and grueling hours in the interrogation room.
I've always thought of him as an honest man.
Well, you know he's not an honest man because he's had an affair with one of his congregation members for almost 10 years.
And with the confirmation of Love's guilt, even experienced detectives are stunned at the depth of the pastor's betrayal of his friend, his church, and his God.
We look to this casket, and the body here, and all the flowers, the things gathered around, we say, but we anticipated he would grow old. We anticipated that we'd do more things together. What's with the word anticipation and death being swallowed up in victory? How could this be good at all?
Investigators are happy to finally hear Teresa confess what David Love told her, but there's still a lot left to confirm. What part did Teresa herself play in the crime? Where exactly is the gun that killed Randy Stone? And where is Love, who no longer seems to be at the church or even living in Independence?
Teresa Stone finally admits that, according to Pastor Love, he drives the gun 20 miles out of town and throws it where nobody will ever find it. And nobody ever does.
He told you he was taking the gun 20 miles away?
That's what he told me.
He was going to take it? Did he tell you where?
No, he said he took it 20 miles away.
And as it turns out, David Love himself, along with his wife Chim, has moved to another state, where the former pastor is working as a truck driver.
The lead detective travels to South Carolina with another officer, and they have David Love's supervisor call him into the office, supposedly to sign some paperwork.
Much of David Love's behavior indicates some degree of narcissistic personality disorder, so it's no surprise he doesn't expect to be tracked down in this way. Finding detectives waiting for him in the depot office is a total surprise to him.
Immediately after seeing the officers, Pastor Love appears to turn and flee, and officers give chase.
Detectives have seen this kind of reaction from suspects before. If they have any doubt of David Love's guilt, his behavior today dispels it.
As it turns out, however, Pastor Love is not attempting to flee. He just wanted to pick up his wife so their car wouldn't be left behind at the depot when he went away with the police. Pastor Love is returned to Missouri without further incident.
Meanwhile, Teresa's strategy throughout her interrogations is to minimize her own involvement by stressing things she truly hadn't done, while trying to rhetorically ignore the actual questions detectives are asking. This is a common strategy learned by most people in childhood, and Teresa, it turns out, is very good at answering questions the detectives aren't asking.
This whole line of questioning just seems to make you very uncomfortable.
In the interviews, she constantly speaks about how much she hates guns, even though no one has accused her of pulling the trigger.
Questions about the guns, when we talk about guns, I mean, you seem to be very uncomfortable when we talk about them.
I don't like them. I don't like to talk about them. I don't like guns. I don't like to touch them.
Having committed to blaming her former lover, Teresa goes all in, hoping that once he's been fed whole to the detectives, they'll be satisfied. But if that's what she thinks, she doesn't know homicide detectives.
A brutal murder in Middle America. Irrefutable evidence that what may start as the most heartfelt of emotions can curdle into the most heartless of crimes and become a startling saga of sin and secrecy, leading to an investigation and a capture, but with one essential angle still unconfirmed.
So at this point, police know all about the affair, and now Teresa Stone knows that they know about the affair. But what they didn't have was that final piece of the puzzle connecting Teresa Stone directly to the murder.
The key now is to get Teresa to admit that she helped Love access the weapon, which makes her an accessory to her husband's murder, if not the instigator of it.
The man who killed your husband had the gun already. There's no way you could have got that gun away from your husband. The gun was passed off to him is what I'm trying to tell you. Only you would have been able to do that.
No, I don't touch guns. I don't like them.
At this point, it doesn't matter how much Teresa insists she didn't ever touch guns. With David Love on his way in for his own interrogation, police have a powerful lever with which to pry the last few secrets out of her.
I think Brother Love is going to break down like a cheap shotgun. I think he is going to spill his guts in about record time. I would bet 30 minutes. And he will tell us everything he knows.
David Love is brought in and interrogated by investigators.
If you want to invoke your right to an attorney and not answer any of my questions, that's your right. That's your right to do that.
I feel like I have to because I don't know why wouldn't I have an attorney because I don't know what I'm facing.
With Brother Love in the building for questioning, the detectives use this to press Teresa even more.
David's in custody and he's talking. Okay? Right now is your chance, and you probably have about 10 minutes to tell us everything that's going on with this. When did David get the gun? That's the most important thing right now.
How did he get his hands on Randy's gun?
I don't
That's the
know.
question I need to answer.
I don't know.
Why don't you know, Teresa?
I
Do you not want to tell me? Do you think it implicates you if you say, I made the gun available to him, I didn't know what he was going to do. I had no idea David was going to shoot Randy. I made sure he got the gun, though. You didn't make him go in there and pull that trigger, but you provided him the means of doing it.
I did not give him the gun.
You gave him access to Randy's gun.
The only thing that I can think of is that he went in our house while we were not at home and got in the safe and got the gun.
David Love has access to your house.
I am trying to be honest.
You don't have to try to be, Teresa. You know more.
I am being honest.
Teresa, you know more than you've told them.
No, I don't.
They know more than you're telling them.
She soon admits that she has, in fact, given Brother Love the combination needed to open Randy Stone's gun safe.
He had the combination to the safe.
And you gave it to him?
Well, I was down there one time with him when I was getting into it.
When you were getting into the safe?
Yeah.
So you gave him the combination to the safe?
Well, he watched me open it, so yeah, I guess I did.
You were standing right there while you were opening the safe? Mm-hmm. So you gave him the combination to the safe? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Teresa Stone may not have pulled the trigger, but providing the gun is textbook conspiracy to murder behavior. And from Teresa, they learn the shocking lengths to which Pastor Love was willing to go. Apparently, he had plans for his wife, Kim.
First time he talked about it is he said that he wished he could just break her neck and put her in her car and send her over a cliff. He said one time when they were out on a trip that he thought about rolling his car and trying to make it look like, you know, her neck broke in the rolling of the car or something like that.
The more investigators look into the weeks leading up to Randy Stone's murder, the more obvious the killer's motive becomes.
One of the things police found on Randy Stone's computer in the days prior to his murder, he told Pastor David Love they were severing all ties with the church. And it was a final email. And in fact, he said something to the effect in one of the final emails to Pastor David Love, "You don't need to contact me about this." The emails were really concrete evidence that he was stepping away completely from that church. And of course, his wife, Teresa Stone, didn't want any of that to happen. She was in love with Pastor Love.
And this is not the only motive that lingers with investigators.
One of the bizarre aspects of this case is Teresa's just insistence on learning more about this life insurance policy. And even within 24 hours of the murder, she's asking a friend about the life insurance. And he thought that was odd. He looks into it and says to her, "Did you not know? Your husband moved you off of those policies quite a while back. He actually removed you as the beneficiary and added the 2 children as the beneficiaries to that life insurance." And prosecutors argued this goes to show you that Randy Stone had his suspicions about his own wife by removing her from that life insurance and not even telling her. They worked at a life insurance office together.
Investigators finally have the case wrapped up. Now the wheels of justice begin to grind.
Despite the fact that this was one of the biggest cases in Independence police history, there was no splashy trial here. Pastor David Love was offered a plea and for quite some time rejected the plea deal. Wasn't going to do it. And then finally toward the end, they both knew that police had them. They knew. And Pastor David Love agreed to admit to his role in this crime. He stood up in open court. The judge asked him, "Did you knowingly shoot and kill Randy Stone?" And Pastor Love replied, "Yes." Pastor Love took the plea, was sentenced to life in prison, where he sits to this day.
With David Love put away for life, the beam of justice turns on Teresa Stone. Teresa weeps and tells the court how sorry she is to have been, as she puts it, quote, "caught up in these bad choices that led to the death of my husband."
In a development that surprises some, Teresa and Randy's children plead for mercy for their mother, despite understanding very well what she's done. Her son Michael also laments the bad choices his mother's made, while daughter Miranda tells the judge that as hard as it is to lose her father, to lose her mother also will be even harder.
Despite the pleas of the children, Teresa Stone is in fact sentenced to prison time.
And you have to remember, without Teresa Stone, there is no murder of Randy Stone. She provided the motive, the gun, the fake alibis. Without Teresa, none of this happens. She serves 8 years and is walking free today.
And so, Teresa Stone, who in the end admits to prosecutors that she sent a text explicitly asking David Love to kill her husband, wins her parole after serving just over half her sentence.